So, because the pay-per-view train never stops, we have a WWE show in Saudi Arabia. It's already caused a lot of controversy, as we have talked about, because we are doing champion versus champions, which means we know 2 matches on the card already, which we will get into to kick things off. We'll keep the surprises to later, because we're getting Cody Rhodes versus Gunther, and we're getting Nia Jax versus Liv Morgan. I have talked about the Cody Gunther song on a video we did a couple of days ago, so please check that out. Hopefully a card just popped up on the screen as well. And while you're here too, please do subscribe. I do think it's kind of a difficult situation, but I'm also worried I figured it out. When I say worried, I don't mean worried at all. It's just my big thing to give you a summarization is when we eventually got to Cody versus Gunther, which was always going to happen, I wanted it to be knee-deep in story and just doing what WWE has done over the last few years, as opposed to, well, now we have the Crown Jewel Championship, which is quite the eyesore, and these 2 guys are going to fight. Now, listen, at least we get to see them wrestle. Like, I don't wish this on anybody, but how many times have we wanted to see somewhat of a dream match and we haven't been able to do it because, I don't know, there's some political stuff or somebody gets injured. So at least we're going to see it before the end of 2024. So there's always a positive. But I also actually think there's an asterisk to it, because picking a winner when it is your world champion and your WWE champion, especially when you have other stories you want to tell, coming out the other side makes it very difficult. That's when we turn the clock back to Bad Blood and why I believe Mr. Goldberg showed up. Now, I want to see Gunther versus Goldberg. I just do. I think it would be fun. I think it would be silly. And given that my old catchphrase, we have 52 weeks of programming every single year, if you can come up with some ridiculous fights, why don't you just put them on? That's the beauty of wrestling. Like, if this was UFC, you're not going to get Goldberg getting back in the cage at 57 years old, but because of the magic of sports entertainment, you are able to do it, and I actually think it's going to tie into Saturday night's main event. I think given that's on network TV, excuse me in my British knowledge here, on NBC or whatever the hell it is, you want someone that is going to pop a big rating, so those in charge can go, oh wow, wrestling's really good, and no matter what you think about Bill, that man draws TV numbers. He just does. I mean, maybe that's gone away now, but the last time he was on television, people tuned in, they wanted to see Goldberg, and also Gunther is the perfect opponent. You can work a certain pace and doesn't have to go that long. According to the ring general, he's very happy to give him 3 minutes, and I think Goldberg's going to be in Saudi Arabia. That's right, it will appease all of that nonsense. We're going to have nostalgia stars. I mean, they wanted Yokozuna one year. It's like, we have some really bad news for you. And I also think it gives WWE a get out of jail free card, even though I actually think this sucks, because I just think it's a lame finish. But you have Cody taking on Gunther, you have Gunther taking on Cody, and then, yes, for no reason whatsoever, mostly just the answer being it's wrestling, Goldberg probably does get involved. Maybe he's been sat at ringside the whole time, like, oh man, I'm so happy to be here. And he spears Gunther. Cody beats him, and that does Cody no favors, by the way. So WWE better have some sort of a fail-safe to explain that. How you get away with it, I don't know. And if nothing else, it's the baby faces taking out a heel using cheating tactics. That's why I want to go back to Saudi Arabia shows just being over here. If you're not going to make them canon, they don't have to be canon. I thought they were heading in a much better direction, but that's what I think is going to happen. As ridiculous as it sounds, I think we're going to get a Goldberg. Maybe it's just a distraction. Maybe you don't get a spear, but Cody Rhodes eventually is going to win. What are the alternatives? Like a double DQ or a count out? It could be a count out, you know. Oh man, maybe Cody wins because Gunther gets counted out after Goldberg spears him on the outside, probably through Barry Barricade. And after you've built up champion versus champion, was just going to make you feel a little bit drab in your tum-tum. But now, actually, I'm going with the count-out idea. I've convinced myself because I'm a massive buffoon. That's why I'm much more interested in Liv Morgan versus Nia Jax, because I never thought we were going to get that match. So that one actually just feels like a nice treat. It feels like Santa Claus knocked on my door in October. It's like, would you like a Christmas present now? I'd be like, wow, that would be fantastic. I never expected it. And I suppose there's ways and means. I mean, Tiffany Stratton, I would guess, has to be involved here, because once again, I don't really figure out who can lose and then also tie into what else you're doing. And given that I think we may have another women's match on this card, which again, I'll get to in one just second, maybe that prevents you from doing some things. But it does bring up a very interesting question. If Tiffany Stratton cashes in, neither women's championship are on the line, because again, we're fighting for the eyesore, the Crown Jewel title. So if Tiffany Stratton does cash in, does she need to tell the referee, I'm going after the WWE or the world title? Because even though they're not on the line when the bell goes, as I wiggle my fingers around, her contract would change the rules. But was it actually mean that if she pins Nia, she's the world champion, or whichever way around it is. Is that how it works? Does she win both championships? Is she able to cash in and say, this is now a triple threat match for all the gold? I mean, that won't be the case because WWE doesn't want to separate the belts. It's so ridiculous and it's such a schmoz. Maybe we just need to kind of follow that feeling, although that will understandably annoy a lot of the fan base, because what I've just done is I've introduced ridiculousness to Cody versus Gunther, and I've introduced ridiculousness here, and then you do start threatening to not make a joke out of the championships, because again, execution is everything, but you would be allowed to raise an eyebrow and go, wait a minute, you promised us champion versus champion, and we didn't get any of that because there was a bunch of third parties getting involved. I would imagine that actually Tiffany Stratton is the winner. I was actually going to go with Nia Jax, but no, I think Tiffany Stratton wins this match, and I also think there's an outcome where she pins Liv. No, that doesn't work. Oh, I don't know. I was going to say she pins Liv Morgan because then eventually you have a Liv Morgan feud. But no, if Tiffany Stratton does pin Liv Morgan, she has to go to Raw, and that then negates the Nia Jax story entirely. This is such a mess. I understand what's going to go on, but I think that Tiffany Stratton will probably cash in her Money in the Bank. And I actually think one reason she may go to Raw is because, of course, in January, Raw is going to Netflix, and WWE made it very clear that they see Tiffy Time as a super sort of, what's the word I'm looking for, but as a face of the company. At some point in 2025, they're going to pull the trigger on her. So you want all of those people on Netflix for the first 6 months because everyone's going to be waving a big flag saying, oh, isn't it great that we're on streaming? So in a way, I kind of think maybe it's too early to do the cash in, but I'm going to say they shall do it in Saudi Arabia. Once again, it just is going to make things so complicated coming out the other side. But the good thing is, even when wrestling is stupid and complicated, 9 times out of 10, that does make it quite fun. And just a super quick reminder, my friends, to go to GorillaMind.com/Simon and use the code Simon to get 10% off. There is a link in the description below, but also if you keep an eye on the website, they are often doing 30% off, especially when it comes to their pre-workout, Gorilla Mode. There's a brand new version of this now. It is genuinely the best pre-workout I've ever had in my entire life, which is why I got on board with Gorilla Mind, because I was shouting about it so much. They sent me a message that said, Simon, you may as well be part of the team. It really is the best line of gym supplements I've ever used, and I've been training for over 20 years now, which is quite sad. And they even do stuff like multivitamins now, and it also ships worldwide. So again, it's always 10% off using my code Simon, and if you do keep an eye on GorillaMind.com, you never know, my friends, you may be getting up to 30% off. And they've got an array of stuff as well, so check them out today. Supports me, supports the channel. I appreciate you, and I appreciate it. Now back to the video. So this is where the card gets quite interesting, because I would presume that WWE is sticking to their 5-match format. They love that. And I cannot believe that Roman Reigns is not going to be on this show. Now, the interesting part is at one point he was part of the advertising, then all of a sudden, poop, he vanished. But if you are going to do something with the guy, and I think Saudi Arabia would be so mad, because again, there's a bunch of, what's the word I'm looking for? Politics, I guess, involved in this. It has to be Roman Reigns and Jimmy Uso taking on the Bloodline, because not only will that set up War Games, which clearly we're now heading in that direction, we're going to do the Survivor Series. It's probably why we had the Kevin Owens and Cody Rhodes thing to take Cody out of the cage. You want to be able to have at least one more setup before that. And of course, Jimmy Uso has just returned, and seeing Roman and Jimmy together again is just going to make you feel warm and fuzzy in your tum-tum. Some people have said it could be Roman Reigns versus Solo Sikoa. I think we'll do that on Saturday night's main event as well, because again, leading into the Bloodline Civil War, I don't think you need the singles matches. I think it needs to be little group. Oh, now we're going to do the big group, and then you can wrap things up on the other side. And also, I want to see Jimmy and Roman together as a tag team, but good guys, okay? You want to establish that, and it's right there on the table. But I guess this is the problem, right? Not a problem, because I love Jimmy Uso, but I think WWE will see him as somewhat, not disposable, I can't think of the word is, but he can probably get beaten even though he had just returned, which would mean, even though Roman and Cody won the tag team match at Bad Blood, when you get to Crown Jewel, their Bloodline will win, which will be Jacob Fatu and Solo Sikoa, I'm sure. And then that's how you set up War Games. You've got one and we've got one, which actually, we'll have to tie it into the other match I think is going to be on here. I presume that Jey Uso versus Bron Breakker is going to happen at this pay-per-view premium live event, because of course Bron Breakker attacked Jey on Raw, and I think what may happen, as much as this may upset people, is that Bron Breakker could win, because then Jey Uso is without the Intercontinental title, and then he can be moved back into the Bloodline program, and we can still have IC title feuds, even though it's only going to be a few weeks. I can see WWE thinking this is going to be an easier story to tell if Jey Uso didn't have the championship, which also kind of leads me to believe, and I may be being a little bit cynical here, so you have to forgive me, and it's still good, maybe we gave Jey Uso the title because 1, people were desperate for it, 2, it was a surprise, which is always cool, and 3, it happened on TV, so now we've all been taught if there is a title match on Raw, much like Sami Zayn versus Gunther, maybe we will pull the trigger, so wait and see, and at least, Jey Uso hasn't really defended it. It would be a little bit difficult, and I think that's a whole discourse that we can have. But I think that's why Bron Breakker did it when he did do it. It gives us 3 weeks to build the rematch. Maybe even ton of New Day stuff into this as well, because of course Bron Breakker speared Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston. Maybe you do have a Bron Breakker and Kofi Kingston match before that, and Xavier Woods accidentally on purpose takes out Kofi. I don't know. So essentially what I am saying there is I think the Bloodline will win the match that I propose. Bron Breakker will win the other match. And while I personally would hold it off to SmackDown, if you did want a big hoo-ha-ha, maybe even to end the Saudi Arabia pay-per-view, because it's Roman Reigns and WWE likes doing this, Roman and Jimmy could be getting their butts whipped when Jey Uso comes out to make the save, and he's all sad he's lost the title, but he couldn't see his brethren being beaten up. And that would be quite cool, and it would be getting people talking. The issue is, it extends us to 4 matches, and I have 3 more written down here. Because at some point over the next few weeks, we're doing Bronson Reed versus Seth Rollins. Now, I'm just going to tell you the 3 that I do have that I think we are going to do. Because don't forget, Triple H now loves doing stuff on the TV beforehand because we have SmackDown. So obviously that wouldn't be Rollins versus Reed, or that could be on the Raw beforehand. But the other one that it could be is LA Knight versus Carmelo Hayes versus Andrade for the United States Championship. And I can't remember the last time we saw the US and IC title on a pay-per-view card. So that could happen at 24 hours before, and that does seem to be the direction we're going in, because Carmelo and Andrade have had their best of 792 series, and LA Knight is kind of beefing with both of them, especially because Carmelo Hayes beat AJ Styles. Apparently that injury could be real, so all the best to AJ. I hope he's doing okay. That would be massively unfortunate. And if we do that, I don't think it's time to take the belt off LA Knight. It does kind of leave Carmelo Hayes and Andrade in a funny position. I just don't think right now either of those guys is the guy to become a champion. I do think soon, especially Carmelo Hayes, but I think you want to wait until you can feel it in the air, much like Aladdin. Can you feel it in the air? It wasn't Aladdin, it was a different one. Can't remember. It doesn't matter. So that leaves us with Seth Rollins and Bronson Reed, but it also leads us with Rhea Ripley versus Raquel Rodriguez. Now, are you going to hold that one off to WrestleMania? Because they actually have a lot of history there, and you would be able to tell the tale, and maybe you can get back to that once Liv Morgan has won the championship. But given that we have a Survivor Series, we have a Royal Rumble, and we have the Elimination Chamber, I'm not sure you can stretch that out. It'd be very weird for somebody to cost you in October, and you go, I'm just going to chill for 6-7 months, and then I will get you back. So again, you could do that on Saudi Arabia if you wanted 2 matches. But now that I've gone through them all, I actually do think it's going to be Seth Rollins versus Bronson Reed. Seth Rollins brings star power. Bronson Reed is a powerhouse, and we haven't really got any more. Well, Gunther, I suppose. But it just presents a different kind of a match. And also, it just feels like one of those ones that WWE would have. It's very Finn Balor versus Damian Priest, and it's very... What the hell happened at Bash at Berlin that I can't remember now? But there was another match like that. You're not going to get a proper winner here. For all the stuff that we already talked about, I won't go over it again. So if you did want to treat it as an angle match, so you're almost using the Saudi Arabia show as a mini Raw in order to get to where you do want to get to, maybe a Saturday Night's Main Event, or maybe something big at Survivor Series, or even the Royal Rumble, you certainly could do that. And I would have Bronson Reed win. In fact, if all these matches happened, I would have... Well, technically, I want Raquel to win. You couldn't do that. Rhea should have to win. I would have Reed win, and I'd have LA Knight win, as we've already discussed. But, yeah, I think Bronson Reed can't lose at the first hurdle, because it's like when somebody turns heel and then doesn't get a big win, like Shinsuke Nakamura, when he booted AJ Styles in the ball. If Bronson Reed wanted to make a name for himself, and the way he came up with that was, I'm going to tsunami you and tsunami you, tsunami you, tsunami you, tsunami you, tsunami you, and then as soon as you're recovered, you come back and beat me. It's like, okay, well, you know, yep, as Seth Rollins said, you had your 5 minutes, but when push came to shove, you absolutely sucked. Whereas I don't care how he does it, let him cheat, let him cause shenanigans, ridiculousness, ludicrousness. If Bronson Reed can have that visual pinfall, whatever it is, and talk about it, put on highlight packages and just go on and on and on to the point he bores us to tears, that is going to do wonders in terms of where he can be in 6 months' time. And I also hope the WWE has a big plan for him at WrestleMania. He has proven that he is the man. And also, Seth Rollins is actually up on him now, because he curb stomped his face into Stim with the Steel Steps, allowed Braun Strowman to be victorious there. So Bronson Reed is actually the guy that needs to get his revenge. And it also means come a Survivor Series or a Royal Rumble, depending how patient you want to be, or a Sunday Night's Main Event, this can absolutely build to a stipulation match. And we should pick something that has lost its allure, and we should look at Drew versus Punk and say, how do we make this stipulation match mean something again? because over the last few years, we have run it into the ground. So we don't want to stand on ceremony here, Mr. Wayne. Cody versus Gunther, Liv versus Nia. I think Roman Reigns and Jimmy versus Bloodline is going to happen. I also think it's going to be Jey Uso versus Bron Breakker. And I think it's going to be Bronson Reed versus Seth Rollins. I really don't mind the 5-match cards either. I do think sometimes it'd be better if WWE was more flexible. It depends what you have on the books. But as long as I get to see it on television, what do I care? I guess the good thing about being in the UK is we still get the network, and then we're going to Netflix. So, we're not paying mega money or anything. I guess nobody is for WWE shows. But I don't care where I see it. And you could argue if it happens on TV, more people are going to have eyes on it anyway, because more people watch the television shows, I would imagine, than are watching the pay-per-views. But I'd like to know your predicted card for Crown Jewel, which is going down in a month. So just drop it in the comments down there. Otherwise, please do interact with the video. Like it, share it, subscribe. Turn the notifications on everywhere, including on the mobile app, which I found out is like gold dust. There's a video on that screen. Give it a click. Otherwise, go to mine.com/Simon. You could Simon get 10% off. The other day, they were doing 50% off. So always make sure you check the website. And these are supplements that I use every single day. And I'm an advocate for. I would not promote them otherwise. And yes, I get a little bit of money back. It's like an affiliation deal. But again, I truly do believe in it. Patreon.com/Simon316. A Go Fitness, if you want to sign up for that, is using the code Simon20. Simon Miller 316 to come tell me how wrong I am. Simon Miller on Cameo. Simon J. Miller on TikTok. And Pro Wrestling Tees. Search for my name, Simon Miller. And buy your stupid wrestling t-shirt, which is also very worthwhile for me because it does support the show. Otherwise, take care, my friends. I appreciate you. Enjoy Crown Jewel when it comes around. I mean, we'll do a proper predictions show when we get there and we know the card. I'm sure it will be fine. There's also a little bit of a fuddy-duddy. Goodbye.